Thank you. Okay, so thank you all. Thank you all for taking time out of your evening today as we take a deep dive into college planning with our partners at Student Choice. Again, being a college graduate myself, I remember jumping through the hoops, remembering trying to figure it all out. And I just wish I had something like this. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity that we have to be working with Suzanne today. So she is the expert. She has been with Student Choice for many of years, and she comes with a wealth of knowledge. So please don't be shy. Send in your questions, pick her brain, ask everything that you can to get the most out of this. And again, if you like content like this, we will be having another webinar later on in the fall months where we'll be discussing student refinance. So if you fall into that category, if you know someone else, be on the lookout for that email invite. In the meantime, you can always check out our new website where we have loads of loan information and educational services on there as well. At Dutch Point, we like to educate, serve, and delight our members, and we want to provide that to you tonight. And I'll let Suzanne take it away.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate being here with you tonight on how to understanding how to pay for college. It is such a topic that
Ooh, Suzanne, I can't hear you. You are muted.
media
There
with the
you go.
department.
You disappeared for a second.
Oh, oh, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay. Oh, I hope I'm doing this from a hotel room, so I hope my connection is strong. But anyway, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, such as the FAFSA, the award letters that hopefully you'll be getting in March or April. We're going to talk about how to find those scholarships and what grants are. And then the difference between federal direct loans and private student loans. We're going to go into detail with that so that you know exactly what is happening when you do receive those award letters. I'm going to jump ahead to the tools that you're going to need in order to do this, right? Your first and foremost tool would be your guidance counselor at the high school that your child is attending. But also, I think that there's a lot of wonderful tools out on the internet. I think that the best tool out there is College Navigator. So I do have the website address on the top of this slide. I've used it personally. I have $2 that have gone through the college process. I have a nephew that lives with me that I am guiding him. He is a freshman in college, and we just completed our FAFSA for him a few weeks ago. I've also used this College Navigator to understand a little bit about his school. It gives you a lot of good information, such as the price point, right, on what the college is. And what it does is it not only tells you what the cost of attendance is going to be, but it will also give you the information to build a 4 or a 5-year budget. So you'll see increases in certain categories that you have to pay for, like room and board, food, books, transportation. They should be able to give you a good guide as to how much you're going to pay year over year. And there is some opportunity out there to delve a little bit deeper into the college choice. As a mother, when I was sending my daughters to school, one was going to Washington, D.C., the other one was going to New York. And I come from New Hampshire, so I wasn't familiar with the area or the school that much. I wanted to make sure that they were going to be safe. So there's some demographics.
Suzanne, we lost you for a little bit, but this kind of gives me the perfect opportunity to say that I've tried this website, and I put in a bunch of schools that my daughter was interested in. And I can tell you from building that kind of cost
To
out over
scare
the
you?
years. Oh, Suzanne, you went away for a sec. Sorry.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay.
I was
I
just letting them
apologize.
know that I use that website, and honestly, seeing the cost spread out throughout the years, we kind of knocked some of the schools off. We were like, oh wow, this is going to be very expensive compared to like, UConn or another state college. And it kind of really helps you see the longevity of what you're going to pay. So it's a great website.
Yes. Oh, thank you. And again, I apologize for coming in and out. Um, This slide shows you the cost of attendance. It's not meant to scare you in any way, shape, or form, but it's meant to educate you as to, the types of fees that you're going to encounter, and also the difference between public and private schools. So as you can see, for just discussion purposes tonight, if you take a look at the public 4-year in-state on-campus experience, versus the private 4-year experience, you can see a huge difference there, right? 27,000, almost 28,000 versus $57,000. But in the Northeast, where we're from, obviously on the East Coast, I should say, those price tags are actually higher than that. So you're looking at roughly 36,000 for in-state, another maybe 61, 62, and even I've seen them as high as 79, 80,000 for the private school sector. So I just wanted to let you know, what costs you're going to be dealing with, right? But also take a look at the different colored areas within the bar. The dark blue area, they're non-negotiable. You're not going to change that price. Tuition and fees, that stays rock solid. But anything beyond that dark blue area is your flexible costs. It depends on the choices you and your student make to save money. Okay. And you can save money over the course of 4 years or 5 years. Those little choices along the way make a big difference. The end game is to try and limit your amount of loans that you take out, obviously. And you can do it when you make the right choices and you have the right tools behind you. Now, your credit union believes in a value-based approach to financial aid. They're encouraging you to always take the free money first, which are grants, scholarships, and work study programs. Then the cheap money second, which is your federal direct loans. And then finally, your gap. How do you fill in the gap, that money that you still need to pay to the school? Do you tap into your savings account, your home equity? What do you do? Do you take out plus loans? Do you take out private student loans? You save those things for last, right? So we're going to talk about scholarships and grants in a few minutes and the work study program. We're also going to show you what a federal direct loan is. And then for that gap, I would recommend that you talk
She went out again. I will tell you, she went out at the perfect time because I was just waiting to see what she was going to say regarding who to talk to. So
um,
we cut you off. You said that I would reach out to you, and then we lost you.
okay, gosh,
Might
I
want to
am
go back to that
so,
slide.
okay. All right. So you didn't hear anything that I said about this slide?
We heard everything. At the end, you said for the gap, I would recommend you talk to blank.
Yes, your credit union, a financial counselor, or a CPA firm. Okay. They'll be able to direct you better in that regard. Now, where do you begin this whole financial aid process is with the start of completing your free application for federal student aid, known as the FAFSA form. Now, this year, the FAFSA form drastically changed. It went from, I believe, 108 questions down to 36 questions. The Department of Education has made it much easier for people to navigate it. But with that came a delay. Usually, this form is available every year on October 1st, but this year they only released it at the beginning of January, end of December, beginning of January. So there was a delay in that, right? Now, with that delay, there are more delays on top of it because what happened was the form was sent out to to everyone. Parents could start filling that out. And what happened was there were calculations in the background that they were not ready for. So when they do an expected family contribution, or what is now called a student index amount. So now they're saying that the FAFSA form, even though you might have filled it out, you won't get some information back on that until probably mid.
The timing is impeccable. It's almost it's almost comical. Um, we just have to wait. I think I'm pretty sure she'll be right back.
Can you hear me now? I'm
Yeah, you
sorry.
said you had to wait until mid to get the FAFSA back?
Yep, the mid-March.
Okay.
Okay. Usually you get your package from your schools mid-March, but now we have to wait to get the results from the FAFSA form by mid-March. That information is going to go to the schools at that time, and then the schools are going to create a financial aid package for you. So you might not get a financial aid package until April, possibly May. So I would always check in with your school to make sure what is going on with this FAFSA form, because there's a lot that's going on with the FAFSA. Now, you'll have to fill out a FAFSA form every year that your student is in school. A lot of times parents will ask me, well, I probably won't qualify for any scholarships or any financial aid because I make too much money. So I'm not going to fill it out. I would always encourage you to fill it out because what happens is, although you might not qualify for federal aid, the college that your student is going to uses the form to create their own financial aid package. So you'll be missing out on additional funds if you don't fill this out. So I encourage everyone to fill it out. It's free, and now it's easier than ever to complete. So what happens when you fill this out? Well, when you complete the form, what's a student aid report is created within 7 days. And then that student aid report is given to your school, up to 10 schools that you've designated, and your student. Okay, so your student is going to get that student aid index. Okay, so when parents look at that, they see, oh my gosh, the federal government's saying that I have to pay the schools $36,000 towards the tuition. How can I do that when I'm living paycheck to paycheck? Don't get too caught up on that 36,000, for example, because that's the money, that's the benchmark that the school uses to put their financial aid package together. And it's not necessarily the amount of money you have to pay the school. So a lot of times people see that amount, get afraid, don't fill it out the next year. And then again, then they miss out on potential financial aid through the school directly. If you have any questions about your FAFSA, I would always suggest going to the financial aid department of the college that your student is going to attend to make sure that they've received the proper information, that they've received the FAFSA, especially this year where there's so many delays at the Department of Education level. Now, when you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to open up some doors to scholarships and grants, federal work-study program, direct loans. Sometimes you'll get institutional student loans directly from the college, and those plus loans. We're going to talk about those plus loans in a minute for parents to understand it better. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the award letter that your child should be receiving, hopefully March, maybe in April. What's going to happen is that a school, and sometimes the award letters can be very confusing to read. I'm just going to, put that out there right away. because there is no regulator watching over these schools when they write an award letter. And sometimes it can be confusing. Now, the Department of Education has put a lot of time and effort in guiding these schools, but still there's no regulations, and only about a third follow the clear and concise way to write an award letter. The other 2/3 in this country don't. So if you ever have a question regarding your award letter, do not hesitate again to reach out to your financial aid officer. But wanted to show you, this is what a typical award letter would look like. Sometimes what they do is lump everything together, fall and spring together in the whole year, but other colleges will divide it between fall and spring semesters. So right here, you see tuition and fees, housing and meals, book and supplies, transportation, personal, and estimated total cost of attendance. Okay, so then what they're going to do is they're going to take that price tag and then they're going to show you their financial offer to you, whether they're going to give you scholarships, grants, any free money. So they're going to take that off of the total of your cost of attendance. And then they're also going to show you total money and loans that come off of that as well. So in this example, you see direct subsidized, and we'll talk about what that means later, a direct unsubsidized federal loan, the total amount of loans, right? So they take that loan and they subtract it from the cost of attendance. Now, you and I know as parents that we often have to take out loans against cars and mortgages and all of that. So we're sort of used to all of this, but your typical 18-year-old student might not understand that that loan has to be paid back. So we have to make sure that we do a lot of sit downs as a family unit. I know that I did with my daughters and my nephew. When they got their award letter, they needed to understand what they were signing up for, because let's face it, parents will fill out the loan. Most parents will fill out the loan application on behalf of their student. And then at the end of 4 years, your student has to pay, the money back, right? So it's good to have these conversations up front and sort of pull apart that award letter. Now, how much do you really need? Well, when you take a look at that award letter, I want you to understand that it is not written in stone. Other than the tuition and fees, which are constant, anything above and beyond that are flexible costs. Okay, so remember that. So again, we'll talk a little bit about the choices that you can make to save some money on that. But I also want to make sure that you know that you can appeal an award letter, okay? Especially if there was a significant life change that happened to you, such as death, divorce, disability. And sometimes it doesn't need to be as drastic and dramatic as that, right? It could be simply, I have a daughter that's going to private school, high school. My oldest daughter now is going to college, and I take care of my sick mother at home. Well, that is not showing on my tax forms anywhere. And that's what you need to fill out your FAFSA form. Tax returns from 2 years ago, right? So they're looking at a point in time 2 years ago that might not represent your income today. And a financial aid officer won't know that just by looking at the FAFSA form. So that's why I say you always have to reach out, talk to your financial aid officer. That's why they're there. They're there to really help you, and they do want to help you, believe it or not, save as much money as you can. Now, there's also something that's called tuition payment plans that you can enroll in. And this is a service that's directly with the university through the bursar's office. So if you go on their website, you can do what's called a tuition payment plan. So what that is it takes the cost of attendance minus any financial aid. And let's say in this case, you have $10,000 that's an unmet need. So you have to decide whether you want a private student loan or you want to pull that from your account. So however you want. Now, this tuition payment plan will put that $10,000 on a payment plan. It's usually 9 or 10 months. Well, you're probably saying to yourself, Suzanne, who can afford $1,000 a month? I don't know if I can. And that's okay. I agree, because I was right in your shoes a few years back. But what I would suggest you do is that maybe you take $1,000 of that unmet need and put it on a tuition payment plan. That's $100 a month for 10 months. Maybe your son or daughter pays $50 and you pay the other $50. So that's $1,000 you don't have to roll into a student loan for that year. You multiply that by 4 years, that's $4,000 that you don't have to get in student loans. So those are the little choices along the way that makes all of the difference. Um, I wanted to take a minute to show you, remember I talked about those flexible costs and how you can save on those expenses. This is just an example. So don't take it word for word, but there is some opportunity for some savings. That being said, the freshmen kids that come into the school really are handcuffed with some of these plans. And what I mean by that is, that first expense, rent, which is room and board. A lot of colleges require the student to live on campus the first year, maybe the first 2 years while they're going to school. Once that year is up, your student can choose to live off campus, saving money, right? Or another way to save expenses in this line item would be to room with more than one person, maybe go into a suite with 3 or 4 people. That would be cheaper. Or they could become an RA in their second, third, or fourth year and have that rent removed from their award letter, right? So there are ways to save on that. Also, the food is ridiculous that first year. The cost, I never can agree with that. I don't understand why it's so expensive. And they get the cafeteria plan A, which is the Cadillac of plans, right? But in year 2, 3, and 4, they have a choice of food. They can get cafeteria plan A, B, C, D, D being rice and ramen noodles, right? So there's another way to save on food. Now, some colleges do allow you, if you have a food credit at the end of the year, to reduce your tuition by that amount. Or some students have been really creative where, especially my daughter, she had a food credit that she could sell off to someone that needed it, like someone that's on the football team or the hockey team, or someone that really takes in a lot of food. So again, that's another way to save. Now, books are super expensive if you buy them through the university. I should change the slide. I say it every time I see it and I keep on forgetting to do it. Books can be anywhere from $250 to $350 a book. So that's really expensive. So one way to get around that is you can rent books, you can buy used books, you can download books on an iPad. Again, if you're going to use those different avenues, make sure your student checks with his or her professor. Sometimes the professor will, on his syllabus, say you have to buy 3 or 4 books. Sometimes they never use those books. So my nephew actually waited a week into his class before he bought his books. It would make me nervous because I'm a different type of person. I would want to be, organized and buy the books right away. But he actually saved some money doing that because some professors don't use all the books. So again, having a conversation with the professor is really important. I'll talk
One of those
about personal.
people, I can say that. I just want to test that. One of those people I waited. And there's a lot every semester. There were like 2 books that I didn't have to buy. I can just vouch for that.
Right? Thank
Yeah.
you. It's amazing to me. Because it's a lot of money. It could be $700 for 2 books. It's crazy. But anyway, personal expenses, I'm going to continue. I'm going to skip over that for now. I'll get back to it, believe me, because I like to get on my soapbox with this one. But the next one, transportation, it is what it is. The cost is there. You're going to have to pay it, especially if you're on a school campus that is in the city. The only way I can see around that is if bring your own bike and go from class to class. Now, the personal expenses that I want to talk about, these are expenses that I only hear from upcoming graduates that they regret. Okay. And this is what happens when you overpay on your tuition. Now, people are saying, how can you overpay on your tuition? Well, some kids, when they live off campus, they get a credit on their tuition bill so that they can use that money for the lease on their apartment, their off campus apartment. Well, sometimes the money doesn't go, the full amount doesn't go to rent. You have what's called a credit, right? For whatever reason, whether it's that reason or another reason there, if you have a credit on your student account, I always say put it towards the principal balance of any student loan that you have. Do not spend it on something else, because what would happen is some universities put this credit in a student account and attach it with a debit card. And that student takes the debit card, goes down to the local cafe, puts a $5 cup of coffee on that debit card, and now they've just financed that cup of coffee for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, because the source of those funds are coming from loans. Unless you're paying cash for tuition, you're getting federal student loans, you're getting private student loans. That money's going in and out of accounts. If you get a credit, man, put it back on those loans, because that's the biggest regret students have when they come to graduation date and realize they have to make monthly payments. And they say, boy, if I had only known in the beginning that those little expenses would have added up on my loan, I wouldn't have done it. So just something to talk about around the dinner table for sure. Now, scholarships and grants are really important. And how you find out, usually scholarships are given on a merit or for people that have needs-based, or some people that, there are many different reasons to get scholarships. There is one scholarship out there that if you write left-handed, you could qualify for a scholarship. You have brown eyes, you qualify for a scholarship. So there's a plethora of different scholarships out there to be had. These are really good resources for scholarships. They're tools to search, FastWeb, College Board, FinAid, Raise Me. I would always look to those 4 entities because they're reliable, they're not scams, and I would recommend them. Now, some of these, I believe College Board, these are nationwide websites. So you're in competition, across the country for these scholarships. So it is harder to find scholarships through these entities. I don't want to lie to you and say that you're going to get one, but it's not a bad place to start because there's a lot of educational tools on how to get scholarships from these websites. Another way to search for scholarships is Google, right? Let's say you're a teaching major. You want to put the teaching major in the Google search by association and scholarship. Now, what you're going to get is a list of all the scholarships for teaching majors. They'll start with the highest dollar amount and list it to the lowest dollar amount. Now, that being said, I would, treat scholarship searches as a part-time job. I required that of my daughters. I made sure that they understood that they're going to be looking for scholarships the end of their junior year. They need to spend at least 1.5 hours every week during their summer months. And I would have to say that it worked out really well for my oldest daughter. She got, I think it was, she got $5,000, I believe. My youngest daughter, not so much. She didn't get $1, and couldn't understand why, right? Because both of them were really good students. And every night I would say to my oldest daughter, give me the list. She would give me all these lists and, what she had done. And, I was happy. My youngest daughter, not so much. I think we've got to, as parents, put ourselves in that 17 or 18-year-old body and see what they're grappling with. Because my youngest daughter, even though she had great, wonderful grades, she looked at the qualifications of the scholarships and said, I don't qualify, so I'm not gonna, she didn't have enough confidence in her abilities. And which was really sad, when I look back on it, I wish I would have guided her better. Um, but that's just an aside for now. But I just wanted to share with you that story. This is another way that you can search for scholarships on Google. Just put in your county that you live in. I live in Stratford County, foundation and scholarship, and it should show you scholarships in your area. Tips: get into the money-making mindset. Make sure that you understand that this is a part-time job. All small scholarships add up, okay? Try to get a scholarship list. The best and easiest way to do that is there's a lot of pre-graduation events like scholarship nights, and they have brochures. Collect those for next year, okay? Because I want you to look for scholarships every year that you're in college, not just, the summer before your senior year in high school. You should be doing this every year. Make sure people follow instructions when they complete the scholarship application. Everything counts. If they're asking you to submit it in red crayon, that's what you do. If they're asking you to staple instead of paperclip, that's what you do, because this is how the committees vet. The essays, if there's an essay attached to it, make sure you take the time, energy, and effort. Have someone else take a look at it for you before you submit it. Make sure you include your job history. I sit on a scholarship committee, and it does make a difference when I take a look to see if a student has a part-time job, because then I know that they can't do a lot of other extracurricular activity. So I account for that in my decision making. When you use reference letters, make sure that the person that you're asking to write them has information on you. Give them a student resume. And this student resume should be all your accomplishments and achievement from the first day of ninth grade through the 12th grade. So if they have something in front of them, all they have to worry about is just worrying, not worrying, but writing about your character instead of trying to figure out, oh my gosh, was she a part of track team or the math team? It'll all be there for that person, especially if you're going outside of the school for that reference. Inside the school, not so much, because school teachers have access to all of that. And highlight community involvement and charity work. That is also very important. It weighs heavily in a lot of committees, scholarship committees. Now, when you're looking for scholarships, please be aware of scholarships involving luck. Put your name in and you might win $500. Well, there's always a catch for those, right? They're trying to get information so that they can sell you things. So just be careful. There are some out there that are great, but most of them I would stay away from. Anything sweepstakey, lotteries, anything like that, I would stay away from. Very easy completion, like a paragraph of filling out just a couple of questions. That doesn't make any sense to me. So be careful of those. And especially those scholarships that don't have any essay. Just be aware that they might be looking for something else. I'm not saying that all of them do, but just be aware of it. The worthwhile. scholarships has an element of competitiveness in it, right? It requires effort. It has multiple sections. I know of one that has 30 pages that you have to complete. And, albeit it's for $10,000, which is worth it. And again, I have the money making mindset, right? That's a part-time job. If my boss asked me to fill out a 30-page report on liquidity ratios, I'm going to do that, right? With no questions asked. Your son or daughter has to get in that mindset of making money. So again, save those graduation booklets or award night programs, because a lot of the sponsors on those programs give away scholarships. Mistakes. The only thing I'm going to talk about on this, it's basically a story. I say it every time I give these webinars because I think it's so important, because I think back to my youngest daughter who didn't have enough self-confidence. But my boss served on many scholarship committees, and one day she was giving the committee was giving away $40,000, which is a significant amount of money. And this young man won the scholarship, and they had a big media event around it. And after the media event was done, he went up to each of the members of the committee, thanking them. But he also wanted to ask them what was it that won the scholarship for him, because he wanted to duplicate his efforts across the board to other scholarships for future reference. And the answer just I just to this day blows my mind. Okay. The answer to him was that he was the only one that applied. So then I was thinking back to my daughter, like, yeah, that makes total sense. Like, so many kids don't think that they could qualify. So please, encourage your students to apply to as many scholarships, even though they don't think that they're going to be able to get anything. I would do it anyway. Again, the money-making mindset is really important here. Grants, you're going to see this sometimes on your award letter. It's free money. It doesn't have to be paid back. This is usually given by the Department of Education, but it might have a stipulation involved in this, right? So the teaching grant, for example, you have to be a teaching major. And let's say if your child decides to go into school as a teaching major, and in year 2, he changes his mind and he wants to be an accountant. Well, that grant can be turned into a student loan. So make sure you understand the stipulations to the grants that you're getting. If you don't understand, please talk to your financial aid office, and they'll make sure that you understand what you're getting into. These are just some examples of federal grants that are out there. You can get a lot of information at studentaid.gov. That is a site that's bookmarked for me, because it explains everything: federal student loans, grants, scholarships, everything is out there. And there's a lot of good tutorials out there for you as well. So studentaid.gov. Now let's talk a little bit about federal direct loans. These, again, are going to show up on your student's award letter. And it is given by the Department of Education only to the student. The parent is not on this loan. Okay. So the student has to be a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen with a valid Social Security number. They have to have a high school diploma, GED, or homeschooling ability to benefit test, passing that test. They have to be enrolled in an eligible program as a regular student seeking a degree or certificate, and they have to be making satisfactory academic progress. So that means that if grades start dropping significantly, the Department of Education could stop giving those loans out to your students. So it is important to make sure that you keep track of your grades. Now, what is the difference between a federal direct subsidized versus an unsubsidized loan? Well, the subsidized is awarded to students based on financial needs. So it means that the government pays the interest while the student is in school. Right now, it's fixed at 5.5%, with a loan fee of 1.057%. So that fee comes right off the top of the loan. So that means the parent or the student has to dig money out of their pockets to pay that fee, right? And then there's the unsubsidized loan, which is awarded to all eligible students, not needs-based. So anyone could qualify for this. So that means that the student is responsible for the interest, but can defer it at a later date. So the interest rates are the same, 5.5, 1.057% interest fee, excuse me. And the term on this is for 10 years. I'm going to show you the different, on this slide, there's the different limits set for each year. So dependent students, the most that they can get in total unsubsidized loans are 5,500, sophomore 65, juniors and seniors 7,500. Independent students have more, but most 18-year-olds are going to be dependent students. Now, there are other options to fill in that gap, right? Because as you can see, that limit is not a large limit to cover tuition. So the other thing that will be shown on the award letter is called the Federal Direct Plus Loan, the parent loan for undergraduate students. Now, this again is administered by the Department of Education. There is no limit. It's just the cost of attendance minus any financial aid. But they do pull credit. So if you do not get approved, your student automatically qualifies for additional financial aid. The interest rate on this is fixed at 8.05%, but take a look at that origination fee. It's typically over 4%. So that is a lot of money. It's so much money they allow you to write it into the loan. The term on this is 10 years, okay? And again, just be super cautious of this and know that you have other avenues to consider once you see that plus loan. Just because it's on the award letter doesn't mean you have to take it. You do have an option. You don't have to take the direct plus loan. You could go right to a private student loan, or you can have both. It depends on your appetite. So a private student loan does not fall under the Department of Education. This is financing offered by credit unions, banks, fintech companies. And really, this should not replace federal direct loans made only to the student, because that still is the best game in town. This is only the gap. We should only be looking at private student loans to fund that gap. So rates vary by institution. And there are usually no origination fees on this, but if there is, the most I've seen is 3%, and I haven't seen that in a long time. Terms on that is anywhere from 5 years to 25 years. And this usually requires a co-borrow because there is underwriting criteria. There's FICO scores, debt to income ratios, right? They take a look at your credit report. They take a look at your employment record. So this is a lot different than a federal loan. Okay. And you can have several different options while the student is in school. So your credit union offers a wonderful solution in that they don't have any origination or prepayment penalties. They do offer 0.25% rate deduction, and the flexible repayment options are interest-only payments, full deferment, or full payment while the student is in school. So they, similar to the federal loans, they offer the same payment plans, right? With a 5-year loan, usually most of them are 4 years loan, with a 6-month grace period. 6 months meaning no payments during 6 months after they graduate, but interest is accruing on that. So make sure that if you have the monthly payments right away, start making it even in grace. That 6 month is just something to give you some breathing room to find a job. Now, with private student loans, there is the possibility of getting the co-borrower released after a certain amount of consecutive on-time payments, usually 48 months. So when you're weighing this against the plus loan is up to 10 years, and the private student loan, you could possibly be released within 48 months, right? So something to take into consideration. And your credit union offers a line of credit, which is really unique. So that means that the student only has to apply once and get that line of credit for the 4 years, okay, up to $75,000. So that means that you have the credit in your back pocket. You don't have to worry about it for 4 years. Now, I want to stress that you are not alone in this. I've covered a lot of information here, but if you go to dutchpoint.studentchoice.org, you're going to get this screen. This is where you're going to apply, but there's also a lot of information on how to pay for college, everything that I've said here tonight. But one of the things that I did want to highlight is that we have a college access counselor free to you through your membership with Dutch Point. And if you know anyone else who isn't a member of Dutch Point, they can still use this service, which is free. So any questions that you have about this process, you can either email our college counselor or you can schedule an appointment to talk to her over the phone. Now, she is not a salesperson. She will not sell you anything. She is there to help you with any questions that you have on FAFSA, the financial aid process, where to find scholarships, how to pay this back, tips and tricks, anything that you have questions on, she's there to help you. So again, you are not alone. I know this is a lot of information to digest, but the more you start hearing this, the better off you'll be. So make sure you go to as many financial aid nights as you can, listen to as many webinars as you can, get familiar with the lingo because higher student ed financing has its own lingo for sure. And it'll just make you more comfortable at the end. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to see if there's any questions.
There are some questions that I have been taking down, and I'll get started because there's a few of them. Okay, so the first one is once FAFSA is filled out, is most of the work on the student, or do they continue to engage with the parent?
Most of the work is going to be on the student because technically they're 18 years old. So they're going to be receiving the information. When you do fill out the FAFSA form, you have your own FSA ID number, which is a good thing. And to be honest, I sort of had access to my daughter's FSA ID number, which is not, you didn't hear that from me, but I just wanted to make sure that things were getting done on time. My oldest daughter I didn't have a problem with. My youngest daughter, I was always, on her for things. And if I wasn't, I would have not known. So make sure you check in with your son or daughter, have them check their email constantly. If they don't get something, then you reach out to your financial aid department, or you can contact the people at FAFSA to make sure that everything is received and sent. There are resources there for you.
Another question, I'm just trying to choose one. Why do they look back 2 years to determine eligibility? And does the school also look back 2 years when they're offering you private aid?
Yes, they do look, the school will take a look at whatever is on the FAFSA form. Okay, they don't have their own process
Mm.
until they receive that FAFSA form, unless you pick up the phone and you talk to them. I don't know why. I can't speak for the Department of Education why they look back 2 years. That's really on them. And I don't represent the Department of Education, so I really couldn't speak to that. But I would go to studentaid.gov. There are some phone numbers out there that you could probably ask that question to.
Thank you. Do private student loans, such as Student Choice, care about my GPA?
Um, They
Right.
do not care about your GPA other than if you were in school and there was a significant drop in your grades, what we call that SAP, um, and you can go on the school's website to determine what your SAP is. It's different for each university and school, but we don't care for financing. We only care if you see what happens is we'll certify the funds with your school. The school's going to take a look at your grades, and if they see a dramatic drop, they're going to let us know that you don't qualify because you went below their SAT point. So it's more towards the school than anything else.
Thank you. Does a 529 count against your needs, or is it only what's used to determine your eligibility for a FAFSA? So I think this means like when they're issuing needs-based aid, do they take what's in your 529 into consideration, or is it only using the data on your FAFSA?
It is using only the data in your FAFSA. However, I know that the FAFSA has changed, and I don't know what the calculation is for 529 plans. So I would again go to studentaid.gov. You can ask that question. I think that they even have like a sample FAFSA form or FAFSA instructions on 529 plans. And you can ask, again, I don't represent the Department of Education, but you certainly can call them and ask them directly about the 529.
So I have two questions here. When would be a good time to apply for a student loan with student choice? Would it be before or after you start your college program?
It would be before. So if you're an incoming freshman, I would start applying. I think applications start opening up as early as April. Sometimes I think the latest is May 1st. I don't have an actual date, but keep an eye on the co-branded website that we have, Dutchpoint at .studentchoice.org. But yes, you want to get your application in, I would say before the end of June. So I always told my daughters to have it ready by the first week of June because your tuition is probably going to be due mid-July. And tuition dates are different for every school, but usually we see tuition anywhere from this first week of July through the end of July. Some schools go to August. So again, it's up to the school when they want payment taken from you. But I would do it the first week of June. I wouldn't wait any longer. But that's just me. I like getting ahead of things.
Thank you.
Mhm.
When would the private loan send the money to the school, and how do they know when to send it?
Yeah, so again, this is a line of credit and it's driven by the student and when they ask for funds. So what you're going to do, if you have a Dutch Point Credit Union um, line of credit, you're going to go to your student portal and you're going to ask for a draw. So let's say, UNH, where my nephew attends, they wanted, oh gosh, like $36,000 for the school year. Okay. So what he did was he applied for the whole $36,000, right? Minus his financial aid, of course. Um, he let's say he asked for 20,000 for the whole school year. So he went out and asked for a draw. That $20,000 was then sent to the school. And what they do is they take a look to see if you're going to be full-time there, at least full-time, at least half-time or full-time. They're going to look at your grades, and they're also going to look at the cost of attendance and what you actually need. So let's say if my nephew he wanted 20,000. Let's say he inflated that by $5,000 because he wanted to go to Cancun for spring break. The financial aid officer would take a look at his award letter and his, cost of attendance, and they would say, hey, he only needs 15,000. We're only going to certify 15,000. Then it would go back to the credit union saying, you know what, you asked us for 20,000, we're only going to do 15. And then the credit union will release the funds to the school. So it really is driven by the student. So it depends on how quickly you want to do it. Now, that being said, once the school receives that request and everything is approved and sent back to the credit union, they might not need the money right away, right? And they'll pull it from the credit union's account, so to speak, when they need it. So again, it's important for you to stay on top of it. Make sure that you get your application in, get approval right away, get pre-approved right away. And then when you get your tuition bill, that's when you ask for a draw. That goes to the financial aid office of the school you're attending. They review it. If everything looks good, they're going to send it back to the credit union, and your credit union is going to release it, and you're done. Now, you can see this transaction on your client portal. You have an account portal when you apply with us. You'll see all of the steps, the stages as you go along. So you're not in the dark at all.
Thank you. What would cause someone to get their private student loan rejected by student choice?
Yeah, so basically it would be, your typical 18-year-old who has a cosigner. The cosigner, I see a lot of times their score might be lower than the cutoff score that the credit union designates. For example, and I don't know what Dutch Point's credit score is off the top of my head. We could
Sure.
look that up, but right now I can't. Um, let's say if the cutoff score is 660, and you come in at 630, that would be, your cosigner would come in at 630. That would be a reason for denial. Another reason for denial would be income. There are income limits. There's also delinquency and bankruptcy. Those would prevent you from getting a private student loan. So that's basically what it would be.
Is there anything that would cause a school not to be accepted for payment?
We do have an approved school list, and we only can give student loans to four-year colleges that are not for profit. Most of them, you do have an approved school list on Dutch Point's co-branded website. If you go to dutchpoint.studentchoice.org, I think it's under the frequently asked questions button. You have an approved school list. This loan is not made for two-year schools, community college, or certificates, or trade schools. So that would be the only thing that would prevent a school from not accepting those funds.
So I do want to throw out that we do have personal loans, and sometimes with the fees from other places, a personal loan might actually be a better option. So look into that as well if you just need something for maybe a 2-year or trade. But the last question that I have here is how old or how old do you have to be able to call and speak to a counselor with a counselor at student
Oh,
choice?
Oh, at any age. We will take any age. The sooner the better. If you are 14, we will talk to you. We'd rather get you earlier rather than later. Once you have all the loans, it's nice to talk to someone before you get all the loans so that you can make the right choice. And especially for those that receive an award letter in the next few months, please, if you have any questions or concerns, reach out to the college counselor. She will be able to help you in reading it and maybe point you in the right direction if you're a little bit lost as to how to finance it.
Thank you. That wraps up our questions. I will say I learned some great things today that I can negotiate some of the award letter. That's awesome that we have free counseling. A lot of great things that I learned today, and also to keep applying for scholarships from before college until as you're going through it, to never stop looking for those opportunities for free money, right? So thank you for that. Again, Dutch Point, we take our pride on our ability to educate, serve, and delight our members. This wraps up our Student Choice Student Loan Seminar. Thank you all for spending your evening with us, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.